Hello, welcome back. Today we're going to look at another video and it's another conscious conversation. And today we're going to be looking at the topic of who are we and why are we here? Lots more questions. But I figure I've done a few videos now, whether it's channeled from my higher self or that of just me speaking. And we've covered lots of different topics. But this will give us a little bit of a glimpse into why I believe we are here. So I hope you enjoy, and yeah. Hello everyone, welcome back to another conscious conversation. Today I'm going to talk about who are we and why are we here? Oh, the big questions. Where to start? First, I'll start with I obviously do not have all the answers. And what I believe to be true is obviously my own truth. It's my own understanding at this time in this present moment. And it does not necessarily represent me as a whole, but it does represent what I believe as the truth right now. So, that being said, what do I believe? What do I believe on who we are? Well, big questions. Who are we? Well, we're humans. We're human beings having a spiritual experience. In that respect, we are spirit having a human experience. So, to understand, I've talked about it in the past. I've channeled different information, but from my understanding, it's understanding that the whole of the universe, the multiverse as we understand it, is energy. It's compiled with everything we understand, from matter to consciousness and everything in between. It's all energy. So we are compiled of completely jam-packed molecules of energy, moving at inconceivable rates compared to what we understand. You know, as far as we would look at it, you know, science is looking more into the quantum understandings of things, and the idea of I can't even think of the name, quantum physics. That is our closest link to what we understand as where science meets spirituality. Now, to look at to go back to us in our bodies, you know, we're compiled with all these different molecules, these different forgive me in my scientific understanding, but in terms of how we work, we're compiled of all these different cells that have all these different jobs. But on an individual level, each of these cells, each of these molecules are conscious. Even if we do not have an understanding of that level of consciousness, it's when we put them all together, we create what we understand as ourselves in this human experience, our consciousness. Now, that's That's as far as my scientific mind will go in that respect. But going back to us as spirit, it's the idea of understanding, realizing that we have a soul. Each of us has a soul, and it's realizing that who we are within this life is who we can be. It's these the soul that you carry is what you feel. It's what guides you through life. It's your intuition, it's your gut, it's your heart, but it's not the head. And it's realizing that on a deeper level, and for much of the time on an unconscious level, we're not aware of the gravity of how deep our soul resonates with who our true selves are. You know, we kind of create these masks, you know, our ideas of who we are, and that gets us through the function of daily life as we understand it in the present now. But the further and further, the deeper and deeper, we start to unravel this facade, and we start to peel it all back. We start to get a peek at our true selves. We start to peek our way into the soul, into the true aspects of who we are. And the more we do that, the more we start to feel into our heart, into our intuition, into our gut, which is guiding us forth into that spiritual experience. The more we allow ourselves to be guided into that spiritual experience. And understand that the idea of spirituality, it's just a term of it's another ism, isn't it? It's the way of us creating another concept of understanding reality, if you will. And I'm not knocking it by far, but it's realizing that the truest concept of our own reality is far out of the grasp of what we could ever understand. It's the idea that the further and further we peek into our own souls, into our own understanding of what reality really is, the more we realize we don't understand. You know, we get fed these pieces of information which guide us further and further down our paths, if you will. And it's the deeper and deeper we go, the more we realize we're treading out into deeper and deeper water. And we don't have, it gets to a point where we realize we don't have a measuring stick anymore in which we can kind of gauge what is our level of understanding within the reality that we have created, our own perceptions. So yeah, who are we? I guess who we are feeds into why we are here. Because you have to understand that who we are is spirit having a human experience? What are we within spirit? You could look at it in a multitude of different ways. But who are we that is having this human experience? And why are we having this human experience? That's the real question, or one of the questions. And it's understanding that the human, and I quote, both of those words are equally as important as the other. The human experience is what we are here for. Experience. We are spirit living through a physical body to experience itself. So how does that work in regards to illness, disease, war, famine, etc., blah blah blah, the multitude of experiences that we would never feel like we would want to experience within our human bodies, within what we understand as who we are. Well, through my own understanding, when we realize, when we feel into that true selves, into our hearts, and when we start to resonate and understand that we are spirit, and that we are oneness with everything, then we realize that we are more than our bodies. It's up to us to create that realization, to understand that we are more than what we realize, to pull ourselves out of that into our egoic responses, into our emotional bodies where we carry all this experience. Not to say that that's where we want to be in a constant state, but it's up to us to create that shift which will allow us to realize who we are within this experiential playground, if you will. It's that it's the catch-22, isn't it? I mean, I feel like there's 100 of them within this journey, but it's all part of the experience. It's terrible, but then yeah. So going back to the idea of why do we have to experience this? Why do we have to experience all that is? It's because consciousness, the source, all of what we understand, all that is creating this experience for us to experience ourselves, for source to experience itself. And I mean, it depends how far you want to go down the rabbit hole, but it's realizing that, okay, yeah, how many experiences do you have to experience of war, of cancer, of death, to create that finite product? But it's also then realizing that we're living within an infinite plausibility within existence. The idea that experience is infinite. The idea that consciousness is infinite. No matter how many times we play out experience, it will never be the same. And if we look into the idea of our souls carrying on from this life, and how we, indeed, each of us lead past lives and future lives, depending how you look at it, depending how you understand it, we come down to have this human experience with different objectives, if you will, different, people call them contracts, missions, different purposes for us to create, understand, to experience, but all in the purpose of furthering consciousness, all that is. Now that's great, but then you start to question to yourselves, where do we go? Where are we going? Are we just on this endless cycle of lives, living and dying? Where is it leading to? And the honest answer is, from my point of view, I can't tell you. But what I do know, what I understand as my own truth, is where we are right now in this point of proverbial time is at a point of great change within the existence of global consciousness. The experience of global consciousness up until this point has been building and building and understanding, relating, evolving, up until and beyond this point. Now, I find this hard because from a very personal, very human, and I want to say my ego is wrapped up in places around it, but it's I want this to reach as many people as possible. For my own understanding, my own truth, again, it's up to you, for you to realize what resonates for you and for what you are to take with you and carry forth and what you are to leave behind. But I want that reach to go out to as many people as possible. But it's also realizing that we're all at different points of understanding within the process of waking up, if you will, where we are within our journeys. And that goes back to the idea of energy and where we resonate and who we resonate with. You attract the people that you are going to attract within your life, the people that resonate with your framework, with your ideas, with your understanding, who is ultimately going to work best for you to evolve, experience, learn and love with best as much as possible within your life. So this is only going to sit with the people that are within that resonation, within that understanding of energetic framework within my own life. And then I'm going to be pulled to the same understanding within other people, the people that are creating that resonance within the people around them. So I've kind of lost my my thought process. But so the time that we're at now, 2020, depending on where you go to, who you ask, it's a time of great shift. Now, I don't necessarily have to be an intuitive empath to realize and see this shift occurring, although it would help. But it's when you look around at the world, I mean, I'm young, I'm 27, but I can still remember, give or take, what it was like even 10 years ago, in that short amount of time frame, the shift and how we perceive time, how that is speeding up, and how much our consciousness is shifting within such a short amount of time. I can't even, begin to imagine for people that are much older than myself, their understanding and how they have seen the earth shift within their own lifetime. It must be quite dramatic. I believe, if I remember from the book Seth Speaks, there's a point in which they are talking about I think it's when they're talking about the second coming of Christ. Yes, you have to read the book to go into that subject. But I think there's a date given, which I can't remember if it is reinforced or not, but it kind of struck me because there was a comment where I think it's Jane Roberts, isn't it? She says, something like, I'm paraphrasing completely, I don't understand how the earth would be able to create such a shift within such a short amount of time. I think the date given is something like 2076, if I remember correctly. And I think when the book was written, that was in the 1970s. So they were looking at 100 years. But even from that point of time back then in the 70s compared to now, so that's what, 50 years, which seems like, from a human life, a comparatively long time, if you will, just from a singular human life. But in reality of our own history and that of human consciousness, it's just a blip in time. But in terms of where we are within the whole of human consciousness, the whole of what we understand has sped up and is completely speeding up as we make the shift in our own consciousness and start to create that raising vibration, and this comes out in the material, where we are materialistically in our technology, in our understanding of different concepts, in how we are, pulling up the past and transmuting all of these old energies. But even as we are creating these shifts, we're bringing up, as we see at the moment, we're in the middle of this pandemic, and we've got the Black Lives Matter movement, and all of these old energies are, coming to the surface because we are creating, not necessarily, yeah, well, we are manifesting these polar opposites, if you will, and it's just part of the process of our experience. I was just having a conversation not too long ago on Facebook, and I think that's what kind of spurred this conversation. But it was talking about someone was saying how that they don't feel like they would want to return to this earth in another incarnation, and how that they would want to leave now. And I think that is a big thing at the moment, and it's realizing that we've come here for a reason, even if we haven't necessarily understood that whole contract, if you will, that understanding of purpose of why we've come here. If we haven't really embodied that into our true selves yet, then it's obviously it's such a hard thing to see through the suffering of what we're going through. And we're at a completely different time now. In the past, in our historic past, we've gone through such heavy energetic upheavals and such heavy suffering in our lives. Or should I say in our past lives? But what I feel now is the suffering is different. What we're bringing up to the surface is different. And in some respects, that makes it easier, but in some respects, it makes it much harder. And a lot of us are waking up to our own understandings of why we're here, our purposes. You know, a lot of us are waking up to the idea of, I hate to use the phrase, I do and I don't, but the idea of us as light workers. Because it is realizing that once we are in a state of waking up, we are here with the purpose to help that of global consciousness, to raise the vibration and help others wake up to their own purpose, to their own understanding of who they are within this human experience. And that's a hard journey for us to live through. But it's up to us again. It falls back to the idea of looking after ourselves before anyone else. When we can allow ourselves to create that self-care, that self-love, and embody it into our own souls, our own understandings, that's when we'll allow ourselves to shift ourselves into a position to then help others. Within that position, you wouldn't even have to create active change. When you're in a position of complete self-love and self-understanding of your truest self, then you will be emanating passive love out into the universe. So without waffling on for too much longer, who are we? We're spirits living a human experience. It's up to us to find our own definitions of what a spirit is, the multidimensional beings that we are, and what is the human experience that we want to live. And why are we here? We're here to have a human experience. But we're also here at an amazing time of global awakening. And we're at a time where we're allowing this shift not to allow us not to shift ourselves beyond the need for the human experience, but to allow ourselves to realize we are more than what we have previously understood within our three-dimensional existence. We are much more than what we have given ourselves. We're at a time where we're allowing ourselves to truly step into our own power, and in turn waking up to the vast abilities, understanding, and multidimensional presence that we have to create that shift to further all that is. So thank you for bearing with me. I've got a bit of a cold going on, so you might hear I'm a bit clogged up, but that will shift as well. So thank you very much for listening. You know, yes, like if you're gonna like, comment if you're gonna comment, but most of all, just take what you want to take from this. Allow it to resonate with you, leave the rest behind, and enjoy waking up. Thank you. Love and Omni. Namaste.